Pleasure. I want to. I feel like I'm at church because I want to thank Kyler for being here with us today. but he's helping us with the YouTube presentation, and I'm just grateful that he's helping us out with that.
Thanks, Kyler.
So, in the agendas, we have the agenda, and you guys may be surprised. This is a different agenda than the ones usually do because I actually, for the first time, noticed an item that I want to talk during the work session. You guys see that? It's I want to discuss about the CS2 zone. Okay, I'm pretty sure you guys by this point, most of you guys are masters on the CS2 zone. We just recently worked on amending the CS2 zone. I got a phone call recently from an appraisal, and he's like, "Are you guys the only ones that have a name of a zone called CS commercial zone that allow for residential?" And I say, "Yep, that's us." So we work extensively on this zone right here on the CS2 zone. You guys remember that? We work with Mr. Salisbury, because we amended the code, because in that zone, we do allow for residential uses. Now, if we remember the product or the projects that are gonna be right here in the CS2 zone right now are gonna be some sort of like this. This is the property. It goes like this. Like that, okay? That's one. So if you guys can see that, there's not much frontage to Geneva Road. And then the second project that the applicant is doing is coming right here, okay? It's gonna be kind of like similar, because it's gonna be kind of like right here. It goes kind of like this. If you guys take a look at that as well, there's not much frontage on State Street. Why? Because those are our commercial zones, and yes, we do allow residential, but we've been fortunate enough, if I can say that we didn't have a bunch of new residential approved uses along those important ones. I think Geneva Road is an important road, and State Street as well. Now, we've been focusing on this portion of the CS2 zone that I think we have left alone or forgot about this portion of the CS2 zone right there. This is where Macy's, is that Macy's? Where Macy's is, okay? This is a State Street right here. Water Gardens, the movie theater is right here, just to give us an idea. And we have a property, what I think prime property right there, which is this area right here. From here to here, that is empty, okay? That area right there, that is, it's open, okay? Now, that one does have a lot of frontage on State Street. So, assuming that maybe someone eventually will come right here with a housing project, I propose, and I'm trying to, before I even start working on this, I'm presenting to you guys to see if we're on the same page right here. I want to take that type of an approach now. What I'm thinking is that we want to preserve our State Street corridor for commercial, and if some residential comes, welcome, but I think that we need to put some sort of like a buffer corridor, something like that will make out of this land. There you go. If you guys see if I get this right, here's there's an shop, an oil shop. Is that yeah? And then we have right here the coffee place, and then my favorite place in town, Mobetas. We have a right. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Walgreens. Is that Walgreens? Yeah.
Walgreens, yeah.
Yeah, we have and then gas station, Macy's. So and then some businesses right here. So I'm proposing as the staff, okay, and this is the direction I'm going, that we in the code, when we say that we allow residential uses, that we put some sort of like a break or a clause that says that on properties that have frontage to a state street or to an important avenue or something like that, I don't have the language yet, this is just for discussion, that we leave a 250 feet buffer or corridor dedicated for commercial uses only, where no residential will be allowed. If we do something like that, in this case, we're gonna be creating a buffer, and the reason why I went to 50 is because from here, sorry, let me see. 250 will be some sort of like from here. Oh, no. There we go. To about this area. Something like that. That's the square footage of this whole square, but that's the buffer that we'll preserve, or that I'm proposing that we preserve for commercial uses. If we measure in a linear way, 250 is gonna be some sort of like right there. Ah.
Daniel, when you say commercial, you're saying retail commercial?
Nope, I'm just saying commercial. Sorry. Right there. That's 250 feet, okay? So that's a proposal, that's an idea that I'm throwing out there. I think it's a beautiful, great time, working session to work, discuss it. Or do we feel like we don't want any more residential whatsoever? I think we should still allow it in the back. I mean, it will be hard to get some commercial, as I've been talking to some developers right here, but I think we should preserve that area to the front. Okay?
So wait, just one more. Did you say it'd be hard to get commercial there in the back end?
I imagine, yes. Well,
Even-
that's according to
Even
last.
with access from the parking lot there?
Pardon?
Even with access from the parking lot?
I think so. Unless someone comes with a project, which, I mean, I'll be really happy if someone comes with a project that takes this whole area. I mean, if we want to preserve the whole area, I'm willing to it, and just we can also take the residential use out. I've been getting some phone calls, and that's what brought this up. People have called me about it. I think it's on the market right now, and people have asked me, hey, can I put just a condominium complex, something like that in the area? And I said, well, you know what, let me see, because I have some different ideas at this point of what that area can be used for. So I have an application already submitted. I submitted this application like a week ago, something like that, right? Yeah, a week ago. But I would like to discuss. If we want to just eliminate all residential uses, if we want to create a buffer, if we want to create a smaller buffer, I don't know. I think I would like to talk to my planning commission about this.
Do we need more high-density housing for lower income housing, for affordable housing? Do we need more?
Yeah, but
Is that what we're going to get there?
no, not at all. Not at all. In order, what we need, we do need for affordable housing, but we need, at this point, apartments that are rent about for $600, $500. That's what we need. That's not what we get.
Yeah, we're not getting that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, most people that I talk to, they're sick of high-density housing in PG, and I don't think that they would love the idea of putting a condo complex in there.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in favor of having it all go to commercial.
It's an option, yeah. I wasn't that drastic, but it definitely is an option. That's good.
I can be dramatic,
and
however you want to say it.
I see what you're, I also think the buffer would be, I think, ideal, but I also think the area south of, what used to be like Payless, that could definitely be commercial.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
Because it's right on the
Sure.
parking lot between, so I think the only area that you could maybe say that it would only be, developed if it was allowed, if it was residential, would maybe be the area behind that would be kind of boxed in. But
I mean, it'd be boxed in anyway.
I get that part. I thought about that idea. I just think it would be really hard to put it into words, how to separate that.
Yeah.
So
maybe you just say all say no residential.
That exactly, I say. Like,
Or you do something where it's kind of what they have in the river bottoms, where the bottom level is commercial and the third is residential. But I lean more towards Todd. I think we lack so much in the sales tax revenue.
Yeah.
This is one of the pieces that can be there.
And it's,
That I think it makes sense to be commercial. I think it, because unless you make that other access coming off State Street, you're gonna go through a commercial zone to get to it.
yeah. I actually think you could use the whole space by just accessing it through that area south of the Payless, or, do you know what I'm talking about? And going all the way in, and then doing both sides, like having a parking lot in the middle of that, and then both sides developing commercial.
I think so.
I think you could.
so you guys are leaning more into just eliminated it?
I think you do that, eliminate it, because by the time you do the buildings based off the cost of that property, it's gonna be frontage of State Street, they're gonna have to get more money out of that, and they're probably gonna go a little bit bigger on the buildings, which means they're gonna need more parking stalls, and so you're probably end up consuming some of that to the south, parking stalls anyway.
I think in regards to money, the money right now is on apartments. Like, I mean, the more they can put in there, the better will be for them. So I think that the few people that have seen this property, they're looking into it for some apartments. That's the phone calls that I've gotten. Hey, what's the density I can put in there? Well, right now it's 12 units per acre. That's the situation, but give me 1 second, because I think I have a different idea for that property, so. So I know there's interest in developing that land right now, but for sure they want to do some, like, they're willing to do some commercial on the front as long as we get some residential in the back. But we can decide whatever we think is best for the city, for our city.
Which is what's happening just on the other side of 1300 West.
And that was a fight.
Right.
Right up
And we
on the
went
other
through.
side of Christensen's.
Yeah, and that was a fight.
And we went through that for quite a while to discuss how to allow that and how to split it up and how much commercial and how much of that needed to be retail, and it was kind of a
Oh, Larry
negotiation.
Myers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was, yeah, this is the piece of land right here.
Yes.
Yeah, yep.
I think,
Yeah, we
correct me
went
if
to-
I'm
to-
wrong,
to-
but that didn't.
But the thing with
turn out
that
exactly
zone,
how I thought it would.
well, it was already, this is actually an old map, so it used to look like that already. So we did allow for residential, which is the case for this property as well, because right now we do allow residential. So, I mean, I'm gonna work on this in the next couple of weeks, I think, but I want to throw that idea to my planning commission, discuss to you guys, talk about it. I mean, like I say, I'm always open and willing to listen and see what we can get. So far, what I'm hearing from Commissioner Fugel is all out. From Commissioner Blake is maybe think about a tiny square right here that can be residential. I mean, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to ideas and see what I can. At the end, I'm gonna present something to you guys in an item, but I think it's a great time for us to talk about it.
Do you know how far that that one that you have out there on 1300 West that we were just talking about? Like how
Oh,
deep
that one
is the
was way
commercial?
bigger. The thing with that one is we didn't do it by
By
By,
footage?
yeah,
by an area, but we did it by an area instead of by distance.
yeah, yeah.
We did a
Percentage of,
45%.
yeah.
But what we did is we did require retail on that one, and we work on a development agreement that we want sales tax. Yeah. In this one, I mean, if someone once comes with offices, well, it's a commercial use. I don't think we should impose a retail requirement on that one. I mean, it's not there right now. I don't. That requirement is only on the zone that is on the
Pleasant Grove Boulevard?
by the
Oh, no.
By the
North Ca-
freeway,
North
on the-
County. North
correct.
County.
because we do require to have some retail there, 50% retail. And when residential was not allowed, then we say, okay, we're gonna allow it, but then we're gonna require retail. In this case, we already allow it. In honesty, so here's the thing, and this is the part that is also good for discussion. Right now, someone owns that property, and there are certain uses that person is counting on. Right now, he's counting on allowing for some multifamily, because we do allow for something like that. So that's how the property is being noticed. So, I mean, when people come and try and sell it, he's saying, hey, you can do multifamily here. So, so far, so when we change it, it might have an impact on him, right? It may not if he is okay with it, but I think he will because that's where the money is right now. Now, we have never making decisions based on economic reasons, but I think this is something taken into consideration.
You do have to be sensitive to the landowner.
Well, if that's the case, you know, to be sensitive to the landowner, if we have the 250-foot barrier, then that can be sensitive to what he's told and to the market to actually sell it, potentially,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and I haven't talked to the owner yet, right? I haven't
Sure.
talked. I just get phone calls from real estate agents, appraisals, things like that, and they just tell me, hey, what can we do here? Can I do this? And so the buffer idea was to, we're not taking any uses away. We're just creating a buffer. We're requiring something. But again, if we decide all commercial, we'll just eliminate the residential uses. Probably, you know what? That's something that should have, would have, could have. That's the saddest words. But we should have, could have done it after we approved those residential units over there. Just eliminate the all residential uses. But I never thought that property. We discussed it actually. We talked about it, but and didn't think it was going to be too fast for somebody to already trying to develop some apartments in there. Do you guys want me to present two options to you guys? And then we discuss it through a public hearing? Will that be okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. I'll draft two ordinances, one that eliminates the whole it and one that keeps a buffer in it. And then we can discuss it. When we notice it, since it's gonna be citywide, we're not gonna send notices to the property owners. So that, maybe, I mean, legally, we're not required to do so, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure if we're gonna for sure eliminate or working on toward that, we should, yeah, probably let them know.
That's,
No,
That's kind of what
I
I've
know
been
how to do,
thinking,
so if
but-
we advertise it, it's completely legal. I mean, we're still gonna put it on the newspaper, we're gonna do everything with it. We can do that at any time. We can do that at any time.
I think you need to notify the landowner. I was involved in a situation like that. I went to go buy a piece of property and then found out that how they had been advertising it wasn't correct. They lost their frickin' minds because the zoning had been changed in a planning commission and went to the city council and they didn't know about it. Mhm. Because it totally changed the value of their land too, because it went from, commercial to residential.
We will take care of that. We will take care of that, whether we have to extend. There's hundreds of owners right there, and that's usually, we're not required to. Probably we'll notice some people, I don't know. We'll do our best on that. We'll follow our legal advice on that. Okay? So should I bring two options?
Yeah.
So Daniel,
Yes.
does our code looks to me like we don't, here in this zone, don't allow multifamily without commercial already, right? Because it says, multiple family residential developments shall be subject to the following requirements, and then it says, where permitted, multiple family developments may be incorporated into projects containing 30 or more acres. Maybe that's only for 30,
So that's when we calculate this whole thing right here, like the whole zone.
the whole zone.
Yeah, the whole zone. So I calculated already, and there is extra room for a little bit of, actually to use all of it for residential. Yeah. So I did calculate, because I measured this area, took it out, but since we already have all this commercial right here, so then there's room for residential.
That would cover the
still. Yeah.
55%.
Okay, so if it's okay with you guys, then I'll start working on it, and I'll present two options. We don't need to discuss it anymore in a work session, right? Should I just go ahead and start working on this and just bring something official to you guys? We'll make sure it's noticed correctly, we'll make sure it's done the right way, and we'll present it to you guys. Okay? Perfect. Oh,
So,
go ahead.
another issue, if we have the time here, just for my benefit, from a planning standpoint, without talking about specifics for the application today, But from a planning standpoint, can you talk about the idea of lot coverages
Yes.
and what percentages make sense? What's best practice? Is it arbitrary? Are there planning ideas behind it? Again, not specifically to what the application is, but what the idea behind lot coverage is.
That's perfect. Sure. When we talk about setbacks, lot coverage, it's difficult to track it down to exactly where they started it or the main reasons why it was started. What I'm thinking is eventually a code was adopted and that code was passed on. People like the type of development, how it look. I mean, it all started in the East when there was no code and all the homes were super close to each other in the big cities. And then they started, firing department came in and they say, hey, there's certain distance where the fire won't jump. And then, okay, there's a number right there. We're going to put it right there in the code. And then airflow didn't go through buildings and there was smells, things like that. And that kind of like started like evolving into this type of situations. We create setbacks. Eventually came to the West. I don't know if I'm going too back in history, but it came to the West. And then some cities adopted certain setbacks and certain numbers like that. Like I say, some of them had to do with safety. Some of them had to do with fire department. In regards to the back setbacks, my biggest, and it's going to be a guess because even in planning school, we don't know why it came to 35 feet or 30 feet on the back, or some cities 25, right? Is because privacy issues start becoming, and people wanted more space. And people, for some reason, and that was new to me when I came to the United States, the more you are secluded in an area, the more expensive your land is. So the more you're in the mountains, the more expensive it is. You go to different countries, the more you are in the downtown, in the center, is the most expensive. And the more you're in the mountains, you don't even get water over there. It's cheaper. Here it's completely different. It's more secluded. So they were asking for bigger zones to have more secluded, bigger setbacks, smaller, bigger open areas, if we can say it like that. In commercials, we usually ask for open areas, and in residential, that concept was translated to residential, and that's where the backyards eventually come from. Most cities have regulations on lot coverage. Most cities have. They have different regulations. What I'm going to present to you guys today is what the applicant is asking. Now, what the applicant is asking in the staff mind is to tailor to one project only, okay? I investigated and I read a couple more cities and I talked to some other planners, and I'm gonna present to you guys four. I'm gonna present to you 4 scenarios. And that's why in my staff report I said, if you guys feel, one of those scenarios are simple to change in the language. And if you guys feel comfortable with those, and when you guys make your decision, we can kick it to city council. If you guys feel like one of the scenarios fits the best, and because at this point we cannot think about one property. We gotta think about the entire city. And if we think that scenario fits better and we need to fix the language, then please kick it back and then I'll work on that. I usually put it on the applicant to come up with different scenarios, but it was hard for him, so I came out with 4 of them. But I didn't have time to draft 4 of them, so I have 2 that are really simple. Not really simple in the matter of how to be applied, but in the matter of make the changes to the language, and 2 that may need more work. So if you guys think that one of those fits better when we discuss them, then we for sure can continue that. But it's completely up to you guys. And I don't know if I answered your question, but there's the best practices. You know, when I was reading the code, our code is exactly the same as the one in Provo, same wording, same everything. So I'm pretty sure it was just passed around. And then I read, for example, the code of Salt Lake City, and it's exactly the same code as what's the city that has the fashion mall?
Murray.
But no, Murray.
West Valley?
No, it's
Sandy?
One of those. West Jordan, South Jordan, Salt Lake area.
It's I'll tell you right now. Yeah, Murray. Right,
I said Murray.
One time I went to a job interview at that city. After 1 year of me working, I was calling it the whole time Murray. So I'm pretty sure they didn't appreciate that. Obviously, I didn't get the job. What's going on, Murray? Murray. The code for Murray and Salt Lake City is exactly the same. The one from Pleasant Grove and Provo is exactly the same. Same wording, same comments.
What is the code from Murray and Salt Lake City? Is it 30%?
No, it's different.
What is it?
I would like to go into the options once we discuss it, and we'll go into the details of every single one. Yeah. Okay. Chair, if there's anything else, I'd like to just
I
wait.
think that's good. That
Okay.
was, thank you. All right, it's 7 o'clock. Sorry. I'm sure Daniel will be back in just a second, but we'll go ahead and get started here with, as the agenda dictates. We'll have a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Coombs, after which we'll have opening remarks by Commissioner Blake.
Will the audience please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for the opportunity to be here tonight and to meet as a planning commission. We're thankful for the opportunity to live in this community and for the freedoms that we enjoy and for the many benefits that we enjoy as part of this community. We ask Thee to please help us that as we discuss the items that are on the agenda tonight, that our minds will be open and clear, that we can make good decisions, that we can be receptive to the comments from the applicants and the public, that we can consider those and come up with good solutions to further the objectives of our community. We ask Thee to please bless members of our community and in our nation that are struggling with this coronavirus, the pandemic, that there will be solutions that will be found, that we can know best how to handle that we can minimize the effects of that, and also get back to our way of life and continue to watch out for one another. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, commissioners. Let's see, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll I'll make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Oh, we have a motion by Commissioner Coombs and a second by Commissioner Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, I'll also entertain a motion to approve tonight's staff reports.
I'll make a motion we approve tonight's staff reports.
I'll second.
Oh, we have a motion by Commissioner Coombs, a second by Commissioner Still. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Are there any declaration of conflicts or abstentions from the commission members this evening? Good deal. We'll proceed with the agenda as proposed with just one item, one official item, then we'll review minutes at the end. We'll go ahead and go into item number 1, which is a public hearing to consider the request of Scott Dent of RC Dent Construction LLC to amend City Code Section 10-9A-12, permissible lot coverage by increasing the 30% threshold for maximum total lot coverage by buildings, accessory buildings, and/or structures of each lot or parcel of land in the RR, Rural Residential Zone. Daniel, I think you're presenting this one to us tonight, aren't you?
Sure, Commissioners, thank you for being here. I know it's one item, it's an important item, and plus the one we discussed during the working session. So the item we have here today is for a code amendment, okay? Text amendment for one of the regulations that we have in our city, okay? These items is for an amendment to change the total lot coverage in a lot. Let me see. When someone create a subdivision, when a subdivision is created, we have lot boundaries. Actually, let me show you something that I was doing right here, actually. I pick a property. This is nobody's property. Well, someone's property, but no one that I know. I just pick it out of the first one that I show up. And for example, this right here, we can see this lot. Let's focus on this lot, okay? I'm gonna use my mouse so people who are watching online get to see it, okay? So these lines that I'm drawing right here with my finger, those are the property lines, okay? On that, we do apply certain setbacks. The setbacks and the PUEs, the public utility easements, are actually assigned, designated at time of the plat. So for example, this lot right here, the setbacks are a minimum. This is in the R120 zone. So my setbacks are gonna be 25 feet on the front to the closest point, 10 on one side, 10 on the other side, and then 25 feet on the back. Having a side yard, 2 side yards, a front yard, and a backyard. Now, usually on the back, there's a bigger PUE. Usually they're about 10, in some cases 15. I've seen when there's some drainage issues, they go to 20. So whatever is inside those setbacks is called the building envelope, meaning that you can submit for a building permit and to locate the structure whatever you want within that building envelope, within that area, okay? In some cases, if the lot is rectangular, obviously it's going to be rectangular, right? I mean, the building envelope follows the areas, it follows the perimeter of the property boundaries. Now, let's not get confused what a building envelope is with the lot coverage. Lot coverage means that out of the entire area of the lot, and there's definition right there in the staff report, but out of the entire area of the lot, only certain percentage of the lot can be covered by a structure. And what's a structure? A structure pretty much is everything that raises above 18 inches. But the code is really clear that the only things that count for coverage are dwellings and structures that are covered more than 50%, meaning they have at least 3 walls. If one, that counts, but if it's open on 50%, then it doesn't count. For example, we can say, hey, how about if this person right here in the back would like to build a a big shade, a pavilion right there, does that count as lot coverage? No, it does not count. Pavilion is not covered on the side, so it doesn't count. But how about if someone wants to build a shop to save their boats, to storage their boats? Does that count? Yes, it does count. It does count if they're going to put like a big garage type of situation, right? So let's not get confused, though, when we talk about lot coverage and the percentage is 30% maximum of lot coverage of the footprint of the building, okay? So it's not the floor square footage of a building. So if, for example, if this building is 3 stories and he has 1 basement, it's okay. It doesn't count. What's the footprint of a building? The footprint of a building, according to our code, is the area within the walls, excluding the garage. Okay? That's the footprint of a building. So having said that, no, sorry, I got confused with that part. Sorry. That's in order to calculate the size of the accessory structure. When we count an accessory structure, we don't count the garage. But when we count the square footage, the total lot coverage, we do count the garage. Okay? Let's make sure that that's clear. When we calculate the size of an accessory structure, we do not count the garage. But when we do count it when we calculate the total lot coverage of a lot. Okay? Did I leave any doubts in there, or is that clear?
Well,
Yeah?
quick clarification. Build envelope or total square footage of lot?
Total square footage of lot.
Okay.
That's what the 30% is. So it's a little bigger than that.
Okay.
Okay? So actually, for example, if we, and I think I put that in the staff report, is it somewhere, but if we run, and we can do it right here really quickly. I think I put it on the staff report. Let me go back to the staff report, see if we can find the number right there. Right here. So if we have, for example, in the rural residential, because this is what this code amendment is for a rural residential zone. In the rural residential zone, the minimum square footage of a lot should be 21,780 square feet. Okay? That's the minimum. And if we do it that way, the 30% lot coverage will be 6,534 square feet. Now, again, this is footprint, not floor space, footprint. Like if we were flying around and where we will look down, what will be covered, that's what it is. So the applicant, obviously, when anybody submits for a code amendment, it's because this impacts certain properties, right? Or certain specific property. In this case, I will strongly suggest that the Planning Commission don't see at a specific property, because when we do a code amendment, we're talking about the entire city. We're talking about every single lot in the rural residential zone. So I totally understand the idea behind, the force behind a code amendment. Usually someone who has problems with that code, someone who cannot comply with that code. But again, I will strongly suggest the Planning Commission has a bigger view of the whole situation. This code amendment, though, is only on the rural residential zone. The 30% restriction on lot coverage it applies to rural residential and single-family dwellings as well. So it's city-wide, okay? However, this amendment is for the rural residential zone. Now, what the applicant is proposing, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to read a little bit of the background, what I explained a little bit more to a specific lot, right? But again, we're gonna try to open ourselves up, open our minds, and see a little bit on a bigger picture. What the applicant is proposing is to eliminate the code that says as follows. In the rural residential zone, all buildings, including accessory buildings, okay, and structures shall cover not more than 30% of the area of the lot or parcel of land. Where we talk about that structures that are 50% open don't count, okay? Don't count. Now, this is what the applicant is proposing. The applicant is proposing to eliminate that language and include language that says that same rule applies if you have one building and accessory buildings, but if you're going with only one big building, a main dwelling, then you can go up to 40% of the area of the lot, okay? That's what the applicant is proposing. Let me show you an image of how, see if this helps us a little bit. I have A and B. A is how the code it is right now. You have, I always draw roads like that. This is the frontage of a load, of a lot. This is the road, the frontage of a lot. And right now our code is letter A. Right now our code says you got a maximum of 30%. So if your home is 20% coverage, or does 20% coverage, you still can do 10% right there, okay? For example, if you had 15 right here, then you have 15 right here, and you'll have right here 14.99999, because this has to be smaller than that, right? So, but a total, you can do multiple buildings, or you can do one building if you want to right now, but it cannot go bigger than 30%. What the applicant is proposing is saying, hey, we're gonna give two options. Option A, keep it as it is, or if you do it in one structure, you can go up to 40%. That's what the proposal is from the applicant, okay? Staff did review some other codes, and I'm gonna present to you guys, now this, what is right here, this code right there, the proposal from the applicant is that image right there, okay? That's his proposal. Today, we can either vote on accepting that, on sending a recommendation of approval for this, sending a recommendation of denial for this, or continue the item if we think that some other options may work better for us, okay? I'm gonna present to you now 3 different options other than this one. In total, we're gonna have 4, what the applicant said, and 3 difference that I found out from different cities, okay? I put some names in there. I'm gonna twist this picture. Let's see so we can see it better. Because I'm pretty sure that people that are watching this online want to see it correctly. How many people are watching this online, Kyler? Me. There you go.
You want to see it correctly though, right, Kyler? Okay, let's do it.
You know what I do with all this? Later on, I go and watch myself. And then I have a lot of respect for you guys because I don't know how you guys understand my accents. I don't understand a single thing I say. So, let's look at some other codes. City of Orem, okay? This is what the City of Orem does. The City of Orem says, here's the road, here's the lot, and the City of Orem says, do your building envelope, and in your building envelope, do whatever you want. But if you want any accessory buildings, they cannot be bigger than 8% of the total area of the lot as an accessory building, okay? But use it as much as you want. That's what the City of Orem says. So they do have limits. Again, all the cities have limits, different ways, but they do have limits. It's not true the cities don't have limits. No, every city has limits just in a different ways, okay? City of Provo says it's exactly what we have, but instead of 30%, says 40%. Same language, same everything. Just instead of 30, says 40%. This is the city of, in Salt Lake County, in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City says, on your building envelope, you can build whatever you want to build there, as big as you want to, but in your backyard, okay, this 8% was of the total lot coverage. The City of Salt Lake City says, build it whatever you want to do, but in your backyards, draw a line, find where your backyard is. Only of this area of your backyard, you can only occupy 25% for accessory building, okay? So they do have regulations. They just have them different, whatever they thought it was best for them. Now,
Sorry, just to clarify, so in Salt Lake City, is that just for accessory structures, or is it for the primary dwelling as well?
no, just for accessory structures too. Okay,
So
this is,
could the primary dwelling take up more than?
yeah.
Right, okay.
Well, they still have
They-
their setbacks, so you
Right.
still have to build
Yeah,
it
within
your
the
envelope.
building envelope. I forgot to draw right here the building envelope. It would be kind of like right there, okay? So, having said that, our code, the code that we have right now that has our 30%, was adopted in 2010, right? Is that what I wrote my staff for? Sorry, in 2000, because it's been 20 years old. So it's 20 years old. That can be read in 2 different ways. Either it's time for an update, or hey, in 20 years, everybody has comply to it, okay? And that's what the situation is. This item did, not this code amendment, but the applicant pursue also a variance. We have as a hearing officer, Craig Call, who used to be the ombudsman. I was pretty nervous presenting that guy. That guy knows everything. And he denied the variance. Obviously, it's a different process than a code amendment, but he denied the variance. And in his comments, he mentioned something that he said that let me see, and I brought it right here on my, let me see, that the right to construct a home that exceeds the site coverage limit in the code does not involve a substantial property right. So he says that it doesn't violate any substantial property right to put a limit on the amount of the building that you can build, especially 30%, okay? So, but having said that, staff really has not, I don't see any detriment of changing the code. I do see a detriment of changing the code just to accommodate one product or one project. But if we have a broader view, and if we, as the planning commission and eventually city council think that it's time for a change, it's okay. I mean, there's not like a limit in the school that it teaches 25% it is, 30% it is. It's whatever the city thinks is best for them. Okay? That's what I have, Chair and Commissioners. Have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I don't know if you guys want me to review the 4 options, or if we got them, here for, or you want me to go over them, or whatever you guys decide.
So review number 4 for me really quick, just so that I
Okay.
understand correctly.
So number 1 will be what the applicant have proposed, right? Which is have 2 options. You can either go 30% with multiple buildings or 40% with one building. Option 2 will be to just increase the number from 30 to 40, okay? Option 3 will be to allow a building to be located anywhere in the envelope, the main dwelling, okay? But then accessory structures, only 8%. This option will require to continue the item and work more on it, okay? And so with this one, those are a little more complex options. And option number 4 will be to also locate the building wherever they wanted it, or as big as they want in the building envelope, the dwelling, but any accessory structures can only occupy 25% of the backyard.
However big the backyard is.
However, the big backyard is, yes, correct. Keep in mind, Commissioners, again, that we're talking about an RR zone, and a zone that allows for animals, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. So we're talking about stables, and we're talking about things like that, okay? So, however, the request from the applicant is for the main dwelling only, but it does affect accessory structures as well, okay? So those are the options that I have. Council, Commissioners, and Chair. I used to have City Council on Tuesday, so I still haven't changed it. Usually have 1 week and 1 week, but this time I had both the same week, so.
Good. Does anybody have any other questions for staff?
I do have one. Yeah, so what typically, can you say what, like the building envelope, what percentage, if you were allowed to allow someone to just develop as much as the building envelope as they want, like what could potentially could be your maximum percentage of coverage? I mean, could it really just a minute.
Well, yeah, hold on.
It will depend on the size of the lot, because not every single lot is the same size. But for example, if we have a half-acre lot, we just need to take. The thing is, in the RR zone, the setback's a little bigger in the front. It's 30 feet,
Yeah.
and then it's 30 feet on the back. So the problem, because I tried to calculate that, but there's not such a number. There's no way you can calculate that, because if you go, for example, to a lot like the one we were just seeing here, you see this lot is super narrow and long. So you're gonna take the 30 feet right here on the frontage, which is narrow, the 30 feet right here, and then only 10 right here. If you go to this lot, for example, then you're gonna take more land, actually.
Yeah.
Because in here is the 30 on the front, and then the 30 on the back, and you see, so it's difficult
I guess
to
what I'm getting
calculate.
at is typically your building envelope is going to be quite a bit larger than a 30% lot.
Oh, for
cover.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, could you,
I'm gonna say bigger than 50%.
you typically, you'd be probably over 50%.
Bigger than that. Every single time it's gonna be bigger than 50%.
Especially if you get into an R9.
You know,
R7.
again, the number may vary depending on the shape of the lot. If you have a lot with a lot of frontage and it's not that deep,
Yeah.
that you,
Got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you will have way more area, and I'm saying that would be even getting closer to 70%.
Okay, okay. My second question is, do you know what percentage of our rural, our area, that's terrible.
2 Rs.
Has been developed? Like, what percentages?
Here's an image. This is gonna help us out. Oh, what percentage has been developed? Oof. It's difficult to come up with a number. Also, those are things that maybe once we have two planners, I can have time to do something like that. It's a great question. I don't know the number, Commissioner. However, this code also affects dwellings that already exist, because it may affect the size of the accessory structure in the back. One of the options of the two options that we did may affect that as well.
I mean, would you say like over half of our zone
Yeah.
has been developed?
I mean,
And there's still a lot of property.
by developed, you mean that already has a dwelling in it? Yes, more than half.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Daniel.
Pleasure.
The applicant is here. If you'd like to come up and say something, please come up to the mic, say your name, and you're more than welcome to.
My name's Scott Dent, and I did apply for this. I appreciate you guys being here for this. Yeah, obviously, we're doing this because we ran into a problem with building our residential house in one of the subdivisions that we are doing. And so I've actually, honestly, we've been in business since '72. I look a lot younger than I really am, but in the 23 years I've been doing this, I haven't ran into this problem in any city that we built in. We built throughout the state. Doing some research, Daniel's done it as well, that most of the cities I've run into don't have the restriction that Pleasant Grove City has as a 30% rule across the board. You run into some when you go into multifamily or really, really small lots. There's a little bit different. But for the most part, I have yet to find a city that has the restriction of a 30% lot coverage in any city that I've contacted or know of right now. So what we're trying to do is, obviously, the primary reason for a residential building lot is to build a primary residence or a single-family house. And I figure, as an individual, you would want to, at least we would want to, and our homeowner wants to, be able to build the structure that he can based upon the setback requirements that the city does. The RR zone is a little bit different than the R120 or R110, 15, 12, whatever you want to talk about. It is the largest of the lots. It is just a little bit larger than an R120. You have a minimum requirement of 21,721 square feet, I believe it is. Instead of 20,000 square feet. If you take a typical setback for a minimum lot requirement for the RR zone, which is 110 feet wide, that basically gives you about 200 feet deep. And if you go off of those requirements, that gives you about a 56% buildable space after you do the setbacks. When you go from the R120 to the RR zone, you go from a 25-foot setback to a 30-foot setback. You do have the opportunity of having animal rights with the RR zone versus the R120 and below. That being said, I feel like if, primary structure, I'll be honest, a lot of structures have basketball courts, indoor basketball courts, indoor theaters, suspended slabs, different things like that. What we're trying to do in all reality is trying to allow people to be able to utilize the house how they want to. By giving us for a 10% bump by doing a primary residence, that doesn't eliminate the 30% completely, but it does allow people, if they're doing a primary structure, and they see that they want to be able to utilize it the way that they want to with their primary residence, they can go as big as they want to without encroaching on other people. I feel like a 40%, a 10% bump with that and being a primary structure leaves us to, you know, still leave a good space. It keeps us down below the 50%, and it brings us more in line with some of the other cities and some of the other rules that are there. So that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
It's hurtful.
That's hurtful.
Sometimes it's good.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could grill you all night if you want to.
I missed enough yet, so.
Well, this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anybody in the public that would like to come speak, more than welcome to. We actually aren't going to take comments online today. Nope. So please, yes, go ahead and state your name.
My name's Ryan Van Dorn, and this came up because of the home that we're looking to build. And so I've learned a lot in this process. I mean, we're 6 months in since buying the lot, and that much further from building. I've been in Pleasant Grove, lived in Pleasant Grove, pretty much for 40-something years. And I don't want to move out of Pleasant Grove. But I think that for me, this could be a difference maker. And I think if there's people considering coming to live here, homes are getting bigger. I don't like homes on top of each other, but I think we're trying to be reasonable with the setbacks, with not going crazy and filling up the whole envelope. But I feel like as a citizen of Pleasant Grove, and if other people are coming to potentially live in our community, that it's going to be important to them too. So I think it's going to be more and more common than it was 20 years ago. And while there hasn't been a change for 20 years, I think you're going to see a lot more resistance, potentially people not, being able to build here because the home they want to build isn't possible on the lot that they've got. So that's really the only contribution that I have, but I think it should be considered. Thanks.
Thank you. We aren't taking those. So we noticed it differently this week. Seeing as how that was the only member of the public here, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. Bring it up to the commission for discussion.
So I actually look at a couple of different things that we already have within the code. Like I personally don't have a problem building on any part of the building envelope in my mind, because you can build on it anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, it could be the full max, almost more like what Orem is. The accessory buildings and stuff like that, they're restricted by the square footage already by the square footage of the building. And so I don't see that becoming a bigger problem. So I have no problem with the 40%. I have no problem with it even being bigger than that. And realizing that this is probably more impactful in the smaller zones than it is in an RR zone and an R120 zone.
Well, this change is only for the RR.
That's what I'm saying. And so this would be more impactful there. But most of the time, like when I'm building houses in a smaller zone, I'm trying to squeeze the house in as it is now, right? So if we've already, as a city or any city, created a build envelope, I think you can build within that envelope. And I don't think that's going to change the impact, because they're already sitting within the setbacks anyway. If somebody says I'm too close to their side property, I'm at 10 feet, I'm at 10 feet. Whether I'm on the left or I'm on the right, or if I'm in the front or I'm in the back. So the real restriction is sitting within the build envelope. So I don't personally see a problem with it within that build envelope. But when you go to two buildings with accessory building or something like that, that's based off the restriction of the main building anyway. Because you can only build so many square feet compared to based off what the square footage of the main building is.
Well, and also, you can't be more than 10% or 15% of the lot with a conditional use permit, right? So there's another
Correct.
restriction in there.
Correct. So I don't see this as really being a negative impact on the city, and I personally don't see it even 40% being too much. Especially when you're talking the full overall square footage, and that's a good question, but yeah, like when I build it in an R19 zone or something like that, I mean, because of the setbacks, that's half the lot as it is now. When you get into an R120 or an RR, I mean, that's a big frickin' building as far as the square footage. It's just like Daniel said, you start going to 2 stories, stuff like that. I mean, you're talking gigantuous freaking home, right? Which the percentage of that actually happening would be fairly low. But you can stick it to one side. I mean, with a 30-foot setback and a 30-foot setback a rear, even on that lot that Daniel showed that example, I mean, they could put that thing, they could have 150-foot frontage if they wanted. Nobody would do that because they don't want to run the sewer and water and everything to the back, because it would cost a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
That's my opinion.
And I struggle with, yeah, Daniel?
And just because I know we're asking for percentages, but for example, I'm going to give you 2 examples. These 2 lots are in the RR zone, okay? These 2 lots have the same setbacks, but based on the setbacks, the building envelope of this lot, it's about 35% only, okay? But the building envelope for this one is about 50%. Different shapes, so it has to do a lot with the shape of the lot and a lot with this one has only this frontage. This lot actually has more frontage than this one. So it has to do a lot with that too. So.
Do you remember that subdivision that we approved a little while ago? They're building a house in there. It's right across from Fugels, that cul-de-sac, and I'm like, I don't know how you're going to freaking build a house in here, right? And I've watched him build that house. That thing's got to be like 20 feet deep because of his setbacks, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see a negative in any way in it unless somebody has a different view.
The thing that I'm weighing there is I do think by allowing a larger footprint on the lot, it does change the feel, especially for an RR zone, of having more building to open space.
But you're not changing the larger footprint. You're increasing the percentage, but you're increasing that percentage. But you can build that anywhere you want.
Well, you can, but you can only build up to 30%.
Yeah, but in our zone, dude, that is
70%.
huge. 6,500 square feet just for a foundation is a big house.
I agree, but that 6,500 square feet is on 30%,
Correct, but
and that's a big house.
But in the
So if
RR
you
zone,
go up
right?
to-
You're talking a 21,000 square foot lot.
Right, but if you go up to a 40%, you are allowed, and I get that you can build anywhere within the building
Right.
envelope, but if you allow for 40% versus 30%, you are having more building and less open space. And-
Correct, but back to Daniel's point is it really depends on the lot. So the lot shape is gonna determine that.
We can't pick and choose lot
That's
shapes.
correct.
We have to do it as
That's
straight across the board.
that's true.
And it does, but I mean, even if you look at this one that's here, I mean, on the one on the right there, you still have the open space on the side of the house where you don't on the other one, and so there is open space still there versus not. And I'm not saying that 40% is too much or too little, but it could change the feel of the zone if we start allowing that larger footprint. But I'm also trying to balance that with how much more is 40% than 30%. What does that look like on a lot? Does it really feel a lot different? And
That's why I think it's more
I don't
impactful
think
in
it
the
is.
smaller zone.
yeah.
Well, I have two concerns, and the one is, I feel like our city needs more consistency in our planning. And I think that if we all of a sudden midway through, like if we've got 50% of the RR zone developed, and then all of a sudden we come in and change, then does that create a lack of consistency in that zone, that you've got different size, do you know what I mean? And the other question that I have is with transferability. If you have someone that comes in and takes advantage of the 40% to build their one structure at 40% and later sells that, and someone wanted to come in, because it does, we do allow for animal rights, so they wanted to come in and build an accessory structure, their hands are tied. They can't do anything because they've already maximized their
Yeah.
lot coverage.
So
But that wasn't their choice.
yeah.
So, I mean, obviously it's their choice to purchase the property at that point.
But is that different than what's there currently?
Well,
Because they could build at 30%.
Oh, yeah, I
primary
guess you're
dwelling.
right. Well, yeah.
but if it's limited to the primary dwelling, I agree with Bobby Joe on that specifically in the RR zone where you know, if somebody does come in and want to have animals and they've maxed out the envelope at 40% with the primary structure, and then they want to have a small barn or something like that, they don't have that
But
capability.
what's Todd saying is they can max it out at 30% right now, right?
Yeah, but let's say it is somebody that comes in after, they've already maxed out the 40%, and I don't disagree, I want to see us change, but if it's limited to the 40% primary dwelling with no other accessory structures, then that next tenant that comes in is like, oh, with enough land, I thought I could have
Yeah,
a barn or something like that, and I find out that I can't.
right.
And so they have a, you know, they have a black swan around their neck.
And that's why I think it could be bigger, as long as you're sitting within that build envelope.
Well,
opens to
which
the-
is why, like, the proposal like an Orem or something like that, I would prefer to see something like that happen personally versus primary only 40%. So that we give more, we allow the property owner, like what the ombudsman said, you know, they have more control of what they want to build. Sure, there are the restrictions and setbacks and 10%, 8%, whatever it is, but they can use their property as they would want. And if they do want to maintain the rural feel of the property, something like that would allow them to continue to have that rural feel
Yeah.
of that zone.
A question, Daniel. How does this affect additions? What can you do on addition percentage of what you have now? Can't you only do a certain percentage if you do an addition on the home?
Yeah,
Of the primary structure of what it already is, or not?
So I guess I'm gonna follow.
So if I had a 5,000 square foot house and I wanted to do an addition, as long as I'm under the 30%, can I only go up to a certain percentage to do an addition on the home or not?
No. So when you submit for a building permit, right? And then, for example, 10 years ago, and your maximum is 7,000 square feet.
Oh, do
Just-
you know what I'm thinking of? It's once you go so big, then I've got to, if I don't have any curb and gutter and sidewalk, I got to put it in.
And that's another issue.
Yeah, that is another issue.
True. Well, do you think increasing it by, like, to going up to 40% does create some inconsistency or changes the feel of the RR? I mean, I guess that,
Well, so I think if, take a look at the aerial photograph Daniel has up there, and there's already quite a bit of variation in house size. Those are all RR houses, right? The lots are all half an acre. But the houses on the larger street to the right are much larger than the houses some of the houses to the west. And I think you're just gonna get variation because people build the houses they wanna have. But variation's not bad either, right? You used to get subdivisions where all of the houses looked exactly the same,
yeah.
and that's not really great either, right? Even, you know,
But we've capped that out to up to this point at 30%. So I'm just
yeah.
saying, like,
I mean, it will make I don't know, like Commissioner Clyde said, probably there are not that many people who are gonna be building 16,000 square foot houses in Pleasant Grove, and so you might get a half dozen or something. I don't know how much area and how many houses would be built like that, but.
I think the reality is the lot shape determines so much of this.
Right. And I don't know if going up to 40%, if somebody were to max that out, I don't know that it does look it'll look bigger, but I don't think it'll change it completely.
Well, I agree with what Tim is saying. In the RR, it really doesn't. I mean, if we were talking about it in the smaller ones, then we'd be like, no, back it up, but.
And I think it's the opposite. I think the bigger the zone it is, the more, obviously, the bigger the mass of the building will be. So that's the perspective that I have. I think it's again, the bigger the zone, the bigger the impact of the building.
So there was a subdivision that I built in Orem, kind of off Sand Hill Road, and it was freaking hard because the requirement of the square footage of the house that you had, but then the lots were so narrow. From the street, they looked like teeny houses, but they were freaking hugely deep because of the square footage that we had to do, right? And that's what I'm saying by the massiveness of a home typically is the pitch of the roof. Like if you're doing a really steep pitch roof, it makes the house look bigger. If you're going 2 stories, it's going to make it look bigger. So this is the square footage, of the foundation, right? I mean, I can run a square footage of a foundation super deep, and the house in the front looks like it's 45 feet wide, 50 feet wide, but it might be 200 feet deep. And so just as going through building and trying to put houses on different lots and stuff like that, I just, you know, and granted, I'm coming from a builder perspective, and so to me, if I can build within the build envelope, why can't I build within the build envelope? Because it's how does that impact the neighbor? If I can stick it all the way to the back, if I can stick it all the way to the side, already, what does that matter?
So.
Does that matter that my house is bigger?
So the question is do we want to increase it? Isn't that what the question is?
Yes.
Do we want to increase it, and do we want to take this proposal, or do we want to take the other three approaches and tailor it better to this area? Because, you know, I agree with the applicant or the owner that's trying to build a house. You know, there are people that might want to, you know, build something bigger, but if they are limited, then they will look elsewhere. And, you know, that's kind of unfortunate. We would lose some people.
I mean, but there's not a city out there that just doesn't have limits.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but we're capping at 30%. So do we want to change it so that it is 35, 40, 41, whatever? And how do we want to frame that?
41.
So,
41.
see, when I look at the proposed amendment change, to me, I wouldn't do A at 30%. To me, I would do, you know, all buildings, accessories, primary, all of it could be 40, 50%.
Which would be the option
So-
two, right?
Yeah, basically.
So if you
right?
kept just the original language, just changed it to 40%.
I think I would lean more towards something like that.
Yeah, I think the applicant's proposal is a little, it introduces more complexity than needs
Yep.
to be there.
Agreed.
That's kind of what I
And-
thought at the beginning as well. I was like,
Yeah,
Yeah, you're tying hands where it's unnecessary.
right.
right,
And I'm
Which
actually,
is an odd problem. Normally, a
right.
applicant's proposal is more broad.
yeah.
Normally go in the other direction.
So I tend to agree with Commissioner Clyde that if we're okay with the building being up to the setback on 1, 2, or 3 sides, why does it really matter if it's up to it on the 4th? Which is funny because I don't mind requiring open space in other contexts, right? But
Peter, what are you doing here?
I'm inconsistent.
So we're a little concerned over here, right?
And I guess that goes for what type of fill we want, in particular within the rural residential, because if you do allow larger homes and a lot more larger homes come in, it does change the fill.
It
Yes,
does.
it would.
And
that would be my concern.
but I don't think that going up to 40% is going to change that.
Yeah.
No, because like Peter said, I mean, if you look at the area we're looking at now, you have smaller homes on that as it is. It's not, it's not like people aren't gonna come and look in there still if they're looking to buy a home or whatever and say, oh, that home's too small, they're not doing it, you know?
I would probably feel comfortable with a 10% increase. I don't know if I'd want to go any further than that
Mhm.
at this point. Like, I
I
don't.
agree.
But I just don't know what it affects.
So a 10% increase on the overall,
So we just go up to 40 instead of 30.
or it's straight up 40% even with accessory buildings?
Mhm.
So that eliminates accessory buildings?
Well, no,
it'd be-
it
that
just-
would be
Okay.
Do
included.
it up
Yeah,
to
so-
40%.
Total, so
Total.
they can,
Yeah.
just the
Total.
house needs to be a little bit smaller,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay.
So the applicant could choose to build their house to 40%. A different
can't.
person could choose to build 30% and then build a
And then
big barn.
10%.
Yeah.
Well, you're
All right, are we ready to make a motion?
not gonna want me to do the motion because I'll just change it to 50.
Anybody besides Commissioner Clyde ready to give a motion?
Danielle has a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just step out a little bit to talk to the city engineer, who's been following this a little bit. And he says that by increasing it at 40 or 50, 60, whatever we want to increase, just to keep into calculation the amount of stormwater flows coming into our system. So the more we increase, the more flow that we're gonna get coming to the drainage system. So
How's that?
something to come
Are you
into.
talking square footage of the roof is catching more water, bringing it into the storm drainage
Mhm.
system versus
Yeah.
just falling on the ground?
Correct.
I mean,
Now, he says there's not he cannot calculate that right now, or if there's actually an impact, but, I mean, there is an impact, it's just hard to calculate it.
that seems
I don't,
fairly minimal to me. I don't,
Minimal impact.
I don't think that's gonna
That-
leave
that
your
does,
lot.
though- That does, though,
Yeah.
so that can factor in, the city has to have a stormwater
Right.
pollution permit.
It-
And
It
the amount
increases
of-
the cost too. that
Yeah,
we
the
have to
amount of
charge
the
them.
impervious area factors into that. And so some cities start to look at things like porous pavement and other things that let water infiltrate into the ground. But, you know, I think if that did become an issue, we could start looking at, if you're building something this big, then you need to
pay more.
include some on-site water storage, or, you know, something that'll reduce that amount that runs off.
I mean, I'd really be curious to see what that impact would actually
Well, the
be by
fact that he
increasing
called
it 10%.
in, maybe it was, I don't
In-
know.
Increases the cost of the impact fees a little bit. So we charge impact fees for something like that.
That the
just increase-
developer's paying.
But the developer would pay for it.
This would actually be in the permit,
Sure, it will be in the permit, yeah.
because it's based off your square footage of your house.
Right. But that's something that
The homeowner that's building, or the builder, whatever, the permit would be a little bit more, but I'd like to see somebody calculate that one.
Yeah, I would too.
That is not
Our
my area of
engineer.
expertise, no.
You have some extra time on your hands that you're.
I mean, it is something to take into consideration, but I have a hard time seeing that being a material impact
Especially in an
to,
RR
to
zone.
prevent it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if there's no other discussions besides that, I'll entertain a motion.
And just to confirm, we can make the motion as it is, we can amend the motion in case we want something else. Sorry, I stepped out for the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes to talk to Marty, but you guys can tailor the motion to one of the 4 options that we gave him. If you guys want to go with option 1, what the applicant submitted, that's what I can only put one motion in there, so the motion in there is for that one, so.
And I think we were considering a 5th.
Well,
No, you can
Well,
just change it.
Because the option now isn't to just change it from 30 to 40.
right, which is the Provo option, right?
The pro
That's-
option? Yeah, that's the pro
So
option.
that's
Okay.
option 2.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
By increasing the 30% threshold for maximum total lot coverage to 40%.
It is the pro option, yeah.
That's just amazing that that's how it's written. How did you know?
That is subliminal influence.
Is that what that was?
So anyone can read that. Okay, I will.
Okay.
All right.
I was going to, but my glasses keep fogging.
It's okay.
I was going to, but I was going to change it to 50.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't want you to, no thanks. All right, I'll make a motion. I move the planning commission forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the proposed amendments to city code section 10-9A-12, permissible lot coverage, by increasing the 30% threshold for maximum total lot coverage by buildings, accessory buildings, and/or structures of each lot or parcel of land to 40% total lot coverage, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report.
I'll second.
And we have a motion by Commissioner Blake and a second by Commissioner Coombs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay, this item will go to city council August 4th.
There you go. Good deal. It's fair. We'll go ahead and move on to reviewing the minutes from the June 11th meeting. I didn't have any comments on that. I don't know if anybody else did.
Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. There's just, we're getting better. I know, right? I know. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks.
I move that we approve the minutes of the June 11th meeting.
Second.
Good deal. We have a motion by Commissioner Still, second by Commissioner Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good deal. Entertain a motion to adjourn if there's no other items.
We adjourn?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.